Today, we're going to be discussing governance, bylaws, and meetings. It's going to be a overview type of meeting. We'll start with governance, what it is and how it affects us, PTA requirements, fiduciary responsibilities for all members of the board, levels of PTA, the different governing bodies in PTA, bylaws. We'll go into a little bit of depth of what's in our bylaws. We'll cover meetings and the types of meetings and who attends. As well, we'll cover the parliamentary rules and motions and touch briefly on elections. As Emmy said, if you have questions, please put them into the chat and we'll address them as soon as we can. So governance, what it says is that all PTAs are 501c3 nonprofit organizations. We abide by all nonprofit rules. As a 501c3, our organization is approved by the IRS for charitable educational mission purposes. We, as PTAs, are under the charitable education. There's also religious and scientific purposes for nonprofit organizations. The governance is how the nonprofit is overseen and kept on track through accountability and transparency. And this is for all nonprofit organizations, not just PTAs. There are several requirements for PTAs that they must adhere to, including the rules and regulations for all nonprofit organizations, state and federal tax laws. We are not exempt from filing taxes. As a matter of fact, we must file taxes even if we are not paying anything. We need to follow the California Charitable Trust requirements because if we don't, we will lose our charitable trust and no longer be a PTA. The policies and procedures of the California State PTA are also guidelines that we must follow. And of course, your PTA bylaws. All are legally binding, including PTA bylaws. We can't disregard any of them. And the majority of the rules and regulations that we must follow are because we're nonprofit charitable trust organizations. Okay, do we have any questions about that? I can't see hands, so if you need to interrupt me, please interrupt me, Emmy.
Okay, no
Um,
questions yet. Oh, there's a
okay,
question from Christine.
okay.
Hi, I wanted to know what does it mean to be a charitable trust?
That I do not exactly know what the definition is. Do you happen to know, Amy?
I can look that up really quick and post it into the
Okay, that would be great. I know it's part of our guidelines as being able to accept donations and provide support services for our students and families. Um,
I can
but
tell you what it means. We're a tax exempt entity designed to support philanthropic causes. So that means we support like a charity. We're like a charity organization. So we can also provide donors with tax benefits, right? If someone gives us money, we can give them a tax receipt. Um, so that's what it means to be a charitable trust, is that we are able to we are tax exempt organization that is able to support a specific philanthropic cause, and we are able to give out tax exempt tax receipts to people who give donations. It's pretty much what a charitable trust does.
So it's different from being just a plain nonprofit in that if you're just a nonprofit without that portion, then you can't do those things. Is that what that means?
Nonprofits can do those things, but with the charitable trust, what it is it's for a specific delineated mission. For the PTA, for instance, it's that we support, advocate for children and causes, right? That's our mission and our goal. So it's for a specific delineated cause. And it's not to benefit one person or one family, but to benefit the whole of what our organization represents.
And then if we somehow just inadvertently violate the requirements of the charitable trust, does that have tax implications?
It
Or
could, but most likely not. So it could, but most likely not, is what I'll say.
okay, so it's not really, I mean, not that I'm trying to go around. I just want to know what could happen if we accidentally do something that makes us do something that's not charitable trust work. I don't really know what that is.
So probably nothing. And what I will say is that there's nothing in PTA that you can't fix. Sorry, I'm stepping on your toes a little bit, Cindy.
No, please. We're a team.
There's nothing that you can't fix in PTA. So if something goes haywire or goes wrong or goes off track, we can always fix those things. We can bring it back on track. So yeah, I'm going to say probably nothing.
Okay. That's
But
good.
we try to do our best to make sure that we're following the rules, right?
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Now, there's a whole list of requirements that all PTAs must follow, and it's filing federal taxes annually. And that would be the IRS Form 990. Usually it's a 990 easy, but you need to make sure that all these filings are done. You must file your state taxes annually. You must file as a charitable trust annually through the Attorney General's office, filling out the RRF1 and, if applicable, the CTTR1. You must renew your PTA insurance annually, and that is paid directly to AIM Insurance, as you all know. You must complete the workers' compensation form annually, submitted directly to AIM Insurance, and that needs to be done even if you don't have an employee. That must be done every year. You must conduct a financial review. It used to be called an audit, at least annually, but we recommend twice a year. It used to be twice a year, and it seemed very cumbersome to require it twice a year, but it's highly recommended because you can figure out where you stand. Okay. PTAs must submit all money for PTA membership through channels monthly. You can't just keep it at your unit or at council. It's the money that belongs to all the or other organizations, state PTA, 33rd District, National PTA. And in order to be a member, those monies need to be sent up. In addition, you must have at least 3 elected officers, the president, treasurer, and secretary at all times. This is described in your bylaws. You must provide monthly meeting minutes and financial reports to your executive board monthly and your association meeting at every association meeting for review and vote for approval. This is a requirement. This is part of the transparency for all nonprofits. You must submit all filings to your council if you're in council, or directly to 33rd District if you're not in council. And then council then forwards it on to 33rd District. This way we have records for backup as you transition to different officers and teams to find out what did we file 2 years ago, or if in the case that the federal government or state government does not have a record of it, if you've submitted it, the copy to us, we can say, here you go, show them what you submitted. And all must be done to remain in good standing as a PTA. Any questions on the requirements? Okay, let's move on. Fiduciary responsibility. It sounds very legalese. What it is the legal and ethical obligation to act in the best financial interest of the PTA, putting the PTA's interest above your own. You might think that it's just the treasurer, financial secretary, financial reviewer that are the ones that have the fiduciary responsibility. But it's actually the entire board, including the president, the secretary, all vice presidents and chairs, who also have the financial responsibility to take care of the finances of the unit or the council to make sure that everything is done properly. As a board member, it's your responsibility to protect the assets of the organization. And that includes not only the cash, but physical assets also. And volunteers are considered assets, as well as the PTA's reputation. It is your responsibility to ensure that all laws are complied with. That includes federal and state laws, as well as policies and procedures of PTA. You need to ensure that the assets are used to meet the needs of the children and members served by your PTA, and ensure the continuity of the association by preserving the assets for the future. And very importantly, you cannot encumber a future board with a requirement to fund something. So if you are trying to think ahead and say, well, next year we want to pay for or continue to pay for something, you cannot do that. You can only commit to the current year.
Hi, Cindy.
You
Can
need,
I?
yeah,
Sorry,
go ahead.
there's a couple of questions in the chat.
Sure.
There's a question from Christina says, does the financial review input the RRF1 or Form 990 filings?
When you say fill them out, it is not the financial reviewer, it would be the treasurer.
No, it's more, so the audit or the financial review, does that have
Mhm.
to be completed before you can submit an RRF1 or submit your federal and state taxes?
No,
I haven't.
no.
Okay, so that's nothing,
It,
that's,
it,
those things can be
it's good
separated.
to have all that information completed,
Okay,
but it's not a requirement.
okay. So we can file all that stuff without having completed the financial audit or the review.
Technically, you can, yes.
Okay.
There's also another question from Jeanette. Is there a benefit to being an in-council versus an out-of-council unit?
The only benefit is additional support. As an in-council unit, your council provides first level of support. You have somebody local that you can go to with questions. They will also provide training. They will also have their monthly meetings to support in the local area. Unfortunately, we do have several out of council units for that do not have a local council. And 33rd District has two area advisors. Emmy is one, and she handles all of our out of council units that are not part of ABC School District. And Nanette Nolan is our area advisor for all the ABC out of council units. So it's just an added layer of support. Any other questions?
There's also a question from Brandy. She
Mhm.
wanted to ask, there's been reference this week to quote unquote employee when we're
Yes.
all actually volunteers. So if you could explain why the use of the word employee is there.
Well, some councils and or not necessarily units, but anyone that you pay directly would be considered an employee. For instance, at 33rd District, we have an office director that we pay, and so she is considered our employee. And we have to pay taxes as well as all the benefits of employment. Typically, units and councils do not have employees, but there might be an occasion where there is. I don't know of any units or 33rd District councils that have an employee. But if that's one of the reasons that we do not recommend paying for people, even if we're paying it through the school district, they're considered, if we're paying for it, they're considered our employees.
Thank you for your explanation. I was just a little confused and I kept hearing
Oh, no
employee versus
problem.
volunteer. Thank you.
We're all volunteers. We get paid in the gratitude and seeing the smiles on the kids' faces.
Thank you. Agreed.
It's also your fiduciary responsibility to ensure that your association remains transparent. All members are given the opportunity to participate in decision making and view the financial reports. And that's the reason we do it at every month. The minutes are reviewed, and all this information is put into our financial review to make sure we are being transparent and following the processes outlined for PTA. We need to ensure that the association is carrying out the purpose of PTA. This includes increasing family engagement and our primary activity, which is advocacy for our students and families. And we want to increase the communications between home and school. We are not trying to take the place of the school and their communications to the families, but we want to supplement it and make sure everyone is in the know and nobody is left out. While fundraising is not a purpose of the PTA, we can fundraise to provide PTA programs. And as was outlined in the previous trainings this week, it's typically a 3-to-1 ratio, 3 programs for every fundraiser. We do not want to have a surplus of money. We want to use the money that we fundraise for to provide programs for the students and the families for the current year. So the ones that are giving their membership dues and donations get to experience the PTA programs. And it's important that all PTA officers and chairs, all people on the board, need to understand why you're doing the things that you're doing so you can be committed to doing them correctly and completely. And that's where the support of councils and 33rd District is here. We want to make sure you understand that it's not just telling you what to do. We want to explain the why you're doing it. Okay. Any further questions on your fiduciary responsibilities? It's a lot, I know. And you'll be getting copies of the presentation, so you'll be able to digest it with your boards. But if you have any questions or need anything clarified, please don't hesitate to ask. Okay. There are levels of PTA. The uppermost level is National PTA. We are all part of National PTA. Below National PTA is State PTA. California State PTA provides our policies and procedures to keep us in sync with all the guidelines that they provide. They also keep track of whether each unit and council is in good standing. If you've paid your insurance, if you've paid your taxes, if you've filed your charitable trust, all that information is accessible by California State PTA, and they help keep us on track. 33rd District PTA is your local district. We are here for all of our councils and units to support. We provide trainings and programs, and we count on you guys to be part of our association meetings, which take place 3 times a year. All members are invited and encouraged to participate in the business of our PTAs. At the local level, there are typically councils, and in your case, it's Norwalk La Mirada Council for the majority of you guys attending. And then you have your school PTA, of which you are the officers. And from your bylaws, every bylaws has the following statement. Each unit or association is a local association of your council, and in this case, it's Norwalk La Mirada Council, 33rd District PTA, and California State PTA, which is also a branch of the National Congress of Parents and Teachers, the National PTA. So it's in your bylaws, this hierarchy, and that we are all part of national and state, as well as 33rd. Governing bodies. Each PTA has an association. The association is made up of all current paid members and they have to have been members for at least 30 days. The association has your scheduled meetings. The meeting dates are specified in your bylaws standing rules. That is when your association meets and makes decisions. Your association gives members the ability to make motions, provide input on agenda items, and make collective decisions by voting on actions for PTA. This is only allocated to members of the association, those who have submitted their membership dues and for at least 30 days. It is recommended that there are at least 4 association meetings each year. August, September, at the start of the school year to approve your budget and programs. Then again in November, December, January timeframe to elect your nominating committee for the next year. And it will depend on when the election is held, because the nominating committee needs to be elected at least 2 months prior to the election meeting so that they have enough time to find the best qualified candidates to put on the slate. In February, March, your association should have an election of officers for the next term. And May, June, depending upon when your end of school year is, you need to approve the end of the year payments, approve the expenditures that need to be made over the summer before your first association meeting in August, September. A lot of times it has to do with spiritware or paying for back to school activities that take place over the summer or at the very beginning of the school year before your first association meeting. The association votes to approve programs, events, and activities that are recommended by your executive board. They adopt the budget. They approve all expenditures and financial reviews. So it's the association that approves that bills are paid. They also elect the nominating committee, officers, and PTA convention delegates. They adopt the bylaws and standing rules. They approve contracts for PTA programs and events. While the president is the person that signs the contract, it is only after the approval by the association to move forward for the contract. The association authorizes an individual to represent the PTA, whether it be at the school board, at 33rd, at your council, or at convention. And the association authorizes the unit's position on an issue after a study. If you want to support a bond measure or anything like that, the unit needs to conduct a study and bring it forth to the association to authorize your position on it.
There's a question in the chat. Is there a specific way to look out for qualified officers related to the nominating committee?
Yes, it's always a good idea to poll your members and find out where their not only interests lie, but their expertise lies. If somebody is passionate about membership and getting out there and encouraging people, and they're an extrovert and they love to do that, that may be a good person to bring on as membership. One of the ways that we groom people for positions at 33rd and at councils is to include as many people as are interested on committees. And that way they can get a flavor for the requirements for your boards. Because if you're looking to fill a position, there are certain activities and requirements with that position. It is not just a person that attends your executive board and that's it. You want to try to find people that reflect the makeup of your families at your school site. You don't want to limit it only to stay-at-home moms. You want working moms. You want working dads. You want aunts and uncles that are involved at the school site. You want people that have a vested interest in serving all students and bringing the voices of the community that your school serves. Do you have anything to add, Emmy, that you might want to?
Well, that sounds great. I did put into the chat a link to California State PTA's webpage about the nominating committee and some other suggestions and a checklist that they provide.
The executive board, every association has an executive board, whether you're at the school unit level, the council level, district level, state level. You have an executive board, and the members are listed in your bylaws, both in Article 4 and Article 8, 5 and 8, excuse me. Your executive board meetings are to be held monthly. Dates are specified in your bylaws standing rules. It might be the third Thursday of the month. The executive board is responsible for overseeing and managing your PTA business in between association meetings. The executive board votes to approve programs, events, and activities, adopts the budget, expenditures, and financial reviews in between association meetings. In your bylaws, there is specified a limit as to how much total expenditures can be approved in between association meetings. It is not a monthly allotment, it is in between, in total, in between your association meetings. Your executive board approves proposed changes to the bylaws and standing rules and may recommend approval of contracts for PTA programs and events to be brought to the association and may recommend to the association the unit's position on an issue after a study. The executive board has more time to look in depth to things. And that's why they can make recommendations and send proposals to the association for approval. Your council executive board, if you're a council, every association is represented on the council executive board. by the unit president or their representative. They are expected to attend the council, executive board, and association meetings as part of the council so that your unit is represented at council and your voice can be heard for how things that are being discussed at the council level affect your school. Each association is responsible for turning in membership dues, minutes, and financial reports to council monthly. Each association officers are expected to attend council and district trainings. That's one of the things that I love most about PTA and the trainings that are available both at council, at district level, and at convention, the online trainings that are available through our website as well as state. And I've been in PTA a long time, and I'm always learning something new. And that's part of the fun of being in PTA is learning. When we take on these positions, whatever position it is at whatever level, just because you're elected or appointed does not mean that knowledge comes with that vote. We have to learn each position and the requirements for each position as it comes. And it's a learning curve, and we're all here to help each other. That's why I love my position as advisory services, because I'm here for everybody. Every council and thereby unit has an area advisor, and you have me in addition to have the support and explain the whys and what is expected of everybody. As an individual board member, it's your responsibility to attend and participate in all meetings. You need to follow all policies and procedures, including those in your bylaws, and conduct yourself with respect and kindness to all. We don't have to be friends with everybody that we work with on our boards, but we need to treat each other with respect and kindness, whether it be at meetings or just simply being on campus. You need to understand the fiduciary responsibilities, maintain confidentiality for what is discussed at your meetings. If something is discussed, it does not mean you can take it and discuss it with your best friend. It is your responsibility to keep the confidentiality of all things discussed until at which time, if it does become public. It is not your place to make it public. Each board member should complete and turn in a conflict of interest whistleblower form annually. Basically, it says that we are being responsible for the fiduciary assets of our unit or council. Each level has their board, so that board needs to fill out a separate conflict of interest whistleblower form. And in it, it lists any contacts you have, whether it be personal employment or somebody close to you, of what companies that might do business with PTA. In addition, as we said, attend PTA sponsored workshops and trainings. And the first step, you have all participated this week, and we applaud you for giving of your time to do that. Before we go on to bylaws, are there any questions of your responsibilities?
I have a question actually, Cindy.
Yeah.
I'm mentioning everybody attending. See, I'm
And
still learning too. I mentioned this at the financial training yesterday, but do you also think it would be a good idea to record into the minutes who on their board, like for example, the parliamentarian or president, attended this evening's presentation on the bylaws and the governance too?
absolutely. And that will show your dedication and participation in trainings. And that is how we lead by example, too.
And I do have another question.
Of
So
course.
there was that other slide deck about the president attending the council executive board meetings and the
Yes.
council association meetings. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe also that the principal is also entitled to be a delegate at the council association meetings.
At the association meetings, as well as most bylaws have them listed as part of their executive board, as well as a teacher rep. So
And sometimes they
whatever's
also
in the bylaws, that's who attends. There are some cases where the principal has expressed the desire to not attend and be part of, and that is few and far between. But since I was parliamentarian last term, I got very familiar with so many bylaws, and there are cases where the principal has opted out of being part of the executive board. But it's good practice to have your principal attend as part so that they understand all that is being discussed and committed to and what your limitations are as PTAs.
Thanks,
Any
Cindy.
other
And
questions?
there's actually one more in the chat.
Yeah,
Who collects the
good.
certificate of insurance form and where does it get submitted?
The insurance payments are paid directly to AIM. Your president and I believe your treasurer were given were sent emails directly from AIM last fall, and it was due, I believe, the beginning of January. And if it wasn't paid by then, a $50 late fee is added into the cost of insurance. And that's paid directly to AIM also. And one thing to keep in mind when you're paying your insurance through AIM, and you'll get a affidavit that you're asked to sign and return. And all that is stating that we understand as a PTA that our insurance broker, AIM, is based in Texas and not in California. That's all that affidavit is stating. And that needs to be sent back also to complete part of the insurance. If you don't pay your insurance, you cannot have activities because there is a risk that if something happens, nothing will be covered. So that's why it's important to do it on time and annually.
Can I follow up? So there's something that we're
Sure.
supposed to pay on the 30th, or no, so sorry, fill out by the 31st. What is like with regards to the insurance?
Mhm.
I, so what is it that covers? Like who are you supposed to list as being possibly on that?
We don't list out but it's your board is covered, as well as approved activities through the insurance guide. Um, there is an insurance guide, and it can be found, if you don't have access to it already, it can be found on the California State PTA website. And that will list activities that are, they call them red, yellow, and green. So green activities are safe to have. They do not have a lot of risk of injury or anything like that. Yellow are iffy. You might need to get additional insurance. You might need to put up guardrails and say, well, not the kindergartners shouldn't be going in the bounce house with the fifth graders at the same time. Just information of activities that you should be thinking through a little bit more. And red activities are things that we do not have through PTA. They are not covered by our insurance. In addition to programs that would be covered by the insurance, you're also ensuring that any mismanagement of funds are covered. If you have a book fair and $200 that was collected suddenly did not get deposited, if you don't have insurance, the board is responsible for that. If you have insurance and it was an approved by your association event, if it was an event that is a grain event, and you have followed all the procedures, then you're covered. And you can make a claim through AIM. However, if you don't get it as an approved event by your association, it may not be covered. I have seen cases where it wasn't covered. Sometimes due to an oversight and it was timing wise, they might cover it, but I've seen more cases where if it wasn't approved and in the minutes for the meeting that a vote was taken and the association approved it, they may not cover it if something happens. And
Thank you.
that's one of the benefits of PTA, is having this umbrella of insurance that we get at a very reasonable rate as part of California State PTA.
Okay, and sorry, one more question, if that's okay.
Yeah.
So the workers' compensation report, like what sorts of services goes under workers' compensation? 'Cause I think we probably don't have anyone under there, but just I'm just wondering, like, what you usually list under workers' compensation.
I haven't filled one out in a while. Do you have better insight, Amy?
I used to be at an elementary school where the PTA paid for not a special education teacher, but an additional resource teacher, and people like that were included on the workers' compensation form. I'm gonna pop into the chat a link from California State PTA that has some examples of what might be covered on the workers' comp form.
Thank you. That'll be helpful. Okay, let's try to get through bylaws here. What they are legally binding document with rules that cannot be changed and rules that cannot be suspended. Every member of your executive board should get a copy of your bylaws. And any association member, upon request, may review a copy. Typically, that's done in the office. They do not get to keep a copy. They do not get sent a copy. They can look at the bylaws. They're not secretive, but they have a lot of information that's kept private, like your different account numbers, your EIN number, your tax numbers. So you don't want people to have copies of it. Your executive board keeps this all confidential, does not share with others, but they should have a copy and familiarize themselves with it. Your bylaws should be reviewed annually by a bylaws committee that's led by your parliamentarian if you have one. And they need to be updated at least every 5 years. So what's in your bylaws? The cover of the bylaws has your national ID number, your state PTA ID number, your school name, your PTA name, your address, the grades that are covered, and your organization date for your association. Article 1 basically just lists out what your name of your association is, what the council name is, if you're in council, and the district name. Article 2 is something that should be read and become familiar with because it's the purposes of national and state PTA at a high level. Very important information that we need to uphold. Article 3 is the policies and principles of PTA, and that's where it's included the non-commercial, non-sectarian, and non-partisan. Article 4 are your membership and dues section. So it specifies your annual member dues, the amounts of your dues that go up to national, to state, to 33rd, and to council, and the amount that remains at your unit. These things cannot be changed without a change to the bylaws. Anything in the bylaws that you want to change has to go through a full review proposal and go through the process of update. Your Article 5, as we mentioned before, is a list of your officers of the association, and that includes those that are appointed as well as elected. The process for the election of your nominating committee and what the makeup of your nominating committee is, how many members, and if there are any specifics that certain members, for instance, at higher levels, the council, the makeup of the nominating committee lists out a certain number of schools represented on the nominating committee. It has what your basic requirements are for holding an office. Detailed requirements can be found in the California State PTA Toolkit, which everyone has access to, but these are just the basic requirements for holding an office. It lists when the annual election meeting will be held and when your officers take office for the new term, which is July 1st. So July 1st, you need to be up and running and hopefully doing great things for your students. Article 6 lists out what the duties of the officers and the chairs are, and they must be able to follow and abide by responsibilities, duties, and procedures as described in the toolkit. And the majority of that section lists out the process that must be followed, because we cannot just remove officers or chairs. There is a basic process that must be followed under the guidance of council or 33rd district, whichever is appropriate. Article 7 is your association meetings. It lists out your responsibilities of the association to the proposed programs and budgets of all programs, projects, expenditures, requirements, and it does require the approval of the association or the membership. The year's proposed programs and budget is presented, and if it changes, if you want to add a program or take away a program that was originally approved, the changes must be taken up at the next association meeting. All approved programs and projects and expenditures must be recorded in the association minutes. This is a legal record of the association. It also has the special meeting notice that must be given for special meetings of the association, and what the quorum is, the minimum number of members needed to be in attendance in order to do business. Article 8 is basically the same for your executive board, what the makeup of the executive board is, your officers, your chairs of standing committees, your teacher rep, and principal. The executive board is subject to the orders of the association and cannot act in conflict with the action that is taken by the association. For instance, if the association has not approved the payment of reimbursement, the executive board cannot overrule that and say, we're going to pay it anyway. They cannot say, we're going to have an event if the association has not voted to approve that event. The bylaws also outline the basic responsibilities of the executive board, the meeting notice for a special executive board meeting that's not your standard monthly meeting, and the quorum needed to conduct business. And Article 9 is your council membership, which is the representation at council and how many additional delegates are elected in addition to the president that would represent your unit at your council. Article 10 is the charter procedure. It's basically defines what good standing is for a PTA and detailing what happens when there's a charter withdrawal, your PTA charter. Article 11 is the relationship with national and state PTA, and basically says that your bylaws of this association cannot be in conflict with the bylaws of national and state PTA. One thing to note, that if something is changed in the state PTA bylaws and in the templates that you haven't moved to for updating your bylaws, that still goes into effect. For instance, when the national dues increase came up, Even if you didn't have it in your bylaws, it needs to be paid. Article 12 is the Articles of Organization, which is just standard boilerplate for incorporated units as well as non-incorporated units. And Article 13 has the ID numbers and fiscal year information. That's the proprietary information that we really want to keep private to your PTA. It has your state, national PTA IDs, your employee identification number for the IRS, your franchise tax board identity number, your registry of charitable trust, which is charities and fundraisers number, your incorporation number if you're incorporated. It lists that the fiscal year starts July 1st and runs through June 30th. And it states that Robert's Rules of Order are the parliamentary authority when in doubt. If it's not listed in your bylaws or in state bylaws, and those guidelines for rules and regulations. Article 15 are the amendments that basically say that your bylaws are reviewed annually and updated at least every 5 years. You can update it more frequently if you have something to change. And the general update and approval process. Very high level, not the specifics that the 33rd District parliamentarian has put forward. Then there's the signature page that has the state parliamentarian signature, your association secretary's signature, and the date that the bylaws were adopted by the association, and the signature of the current president. A copy of the signed page must be sent to council and to 33rd District for our records to keep with your current bylaws. When you get your bylaws back, they only have the state parliamentarian signature, so that there needs to be an update by your unit or council. Standing rules. They list when your rosters are due to council in 33rd District. It lists out any additional vice presidents that you may have. It lists when your association meeting dates are, for instance, the third Thursday of September, November, February, and May. It will list out what specific months are your association meetings. If your association meeting needs to be changed, it needs to keep in mind that your association meeting needs to be held 2 weeks prior, 2 weeks after your executive board meeting. Because decisions are made at the executive board and they are brought to the association. So you want to have enough time to get that information out in the agenda for your association meeting. Your executive board meeting dates are listed. It would say the first Thursday of each month during the school year. And those are held 2 weeks prior to the association meeting. If in a rare case that your current bylaws have your association meeting and your executive board meetings on the same day, the executive board meeting must be held first. Your Authorization for expenditures between association meetings is listed there. It may say you have $500 between your association meetings that the executive board may use to pay bills that are due before the next association meeting. And even if you pay something, it needs to be ratified at your association meeting, and everything that transpires between association meeting needs to be brought up at the next association meeting. Your standing committees are listed, as well as any council assessment fee and due date. Please note your standing rules can be changed and adopted by a majority vote of the members present at an association meeting. The amendments to the standing rules require a 2/3 vote of the members present without prior notice for this approval. So if you have approval, you have the information out to your association prior to a meeting with the proper meeting notice, which is usually at least 10 days, then it would be a simple majority vote to change your standing rules. If not, it requires a 2/3 vote, usually a standing vote, or very specific to make sure it's 2/3 of the members that are present, and only members can vote at your association meetings. Your standing rules should be procedural rather than parliamentary and cannot conflict with or supersede the bylaws. So the bylaws are the ultimate authority. And copies of all updated standing rules must be sent to council and 33rd District for our records too. Any questions about what's in your bylaws? I highly recommend that everybody on the board at least looks at the sections that are filled in and explain what the responsibilities are and what your limitations are. The top level bylaws review process, the president appoints a bylaws committee chaired by the parliamentarian, if there is one. The committee reviews the current bylaws and lists all proposed changes. And then the parliamentarian prepares and presents the proposed changes to the executive board. The executive board reviews the updated bylaws with the proposed changes and votes to approve. At that point, the bylaws are submitted through channels for approval. They go from the unit to the council to 33rd District, and 33rd District will send it on to state. At each level, they are to be reviewed, and any corrections or requirements that are not listed need to be corrected before sending up so that it streamlines the process and hopefully gets your bylaws approved quicker. Bylaws are reviewed and sent back either approved or with required changes from state PTA back to 33rd, who sends it on to council, who will send it on to the units. If your bylaws are approved, they are then to be adopted at your next association meeting. Any proposed bylaws changes are not in effect until after they are adopted by the association. So just because state PTA has signed off on it, none of the changes can be implemented until after the association has voted and adopted the bylaws. Meetings, as we said, there's an association meeting. The executive board meetings are monthly. And sometimes there are board of directors that is a subset of the executive board. It would be outlined in your bylaws if you had them. Units typically do not have board of directors. Councils typically do. And they are also have their meetings monthly. These meetings are chaired by the president. Minutes must be taken at every meeting, and the previous minutes approved at every meeting. The financial reports are presented and approved at every meeting. You must have quorum to conduct any business. If you don't have quorum, the business has to be held over until the next meeting. Parliamentary law is applied. You need to follow the agenda, which is adopted at the start of the meeting. And there are some guidelines that are available for running your meetings. There is a professional governance standards document that PTA has. The website is listed here of bringing it down. And basically it is that as a board, you have adopted the standards of how to deal with your meetings, the levels of respect, and just everybody signing off on it. And your board would adopt these professional governance standards. They can be very helpful because everyone would be on the same page. You could set your ground rules for conduct at meetings and briefly discuss it at every meetings. Things like be courteous and respectful to others. The meeting should be fair and non-preferential. And just so you know that violators may be asked to be removed after warnings are given. So if somebody is being disruptive to your meeting, the president would give them warnings. That kind of behavior is not tolerated at our meetings. We must treat everyone with respect. And if the person continues, the person can be removed by the president and the meeting stopped until that person leaves. Rules of debate should be made clear prior to discussion of motions. You typically alternate for and against. You would set a time limit per comment and one comment per person on a topic so that nobody dominates the discussion. The parliamentarians should keep track of the speakers, ensuring all members have an equal opportunity to be heard. Quorum at your meetings is the minimum number of voting body needed to enact business. It's very straightforward. If your quorum is 12, you have to have 12 members in attendance to vote and do any business. Meeting notice is outlined in your bylaws to ensure that adequate notice is given to the voting body of the meeting. So everybody is aware of it, not just the board members. Minutes are extremely important. I can't emphasize this enough. They're the official record of the PTA as a nonprofit organization and are kept forever and should be bound after each term for that term. Minutes must be taken for every meeting. Actions taken at the meetings for each PTA group should be preserved in the minutes. So if a vote is taken, it is listed in the minutes. If it is if a discussion about an event, it should be noted that this was discussed and a vote was taken to continue or not. Your minutes for the meeting must be reviewed by the voting body at the next meeting and saved as an official document of the association and filed for financial review. The secretary training that was held on Monday night had an extensive list of guidelines for what should be included in the minutes and what should not be included in the minutes. A partial list is the list of attendees for quorum verification. Those would be your members. The record of all actions taken, what was done, not what was said, but what was done. Final motions, approval of previous meetings minutes, the summary of the treasurer's report, approved contracts, elections result, with names and number of votes received. Summary of the reports and presentations. Maybe you want to include the full report with it, but the summary should be included in the body of your minutes. Any unfinished business or new business. The call to order and adjournment times of the meeting, and your minutes should be signed by the secretary at the bottom of the minutes. Your financial reports include the treasurer's report, presented monthly and filed for financial review. Your budget and finance report is presented monthly, and all payment authorizations must be approved by a vote of the association. Financial reviews are required annually, but recommended twice a year and need to be approved by the body, as well as budget is approved initially and any changes presented and voted on for approval. I know we're running late, so I just want to touch on parliamentary law, which are the rules of the game. This is your roadmap. It's your order. One business item at a time to be discussed. Sometimes we get sidetracked. We need to bring it back to one item at a time and each subsequent item discussed separately. Equal opportunity, a chance for everyone to participate. Justice is fairness and everyone understands what's being discussed. And if there are questions, they're answered with respect and dignity, because not everybody has the knowledge that the board might have. The right of the minority to be heard and the right of the majority to decide. Your parliamentarian assists the president to manage the meetings and advise on parliamentary procedures when requested. The parliamentarian facilitates the bylaws and chairs the bylaws committee to review the bylaws and standing rules annually, provides information on the nomination and election process to the nominating committee. They are not necessarily part of the nominating committee unless they are elected, and should leave immediately on explaining the process to the nominating committee. And your parliamentarian is entitled to all rights and privileges of membership, including the right to make motions, debate, and vote. Just because you're a parliamentarian does not mean your voice is silenced. You advise on parliamentary procedure, meeting preparation. You determine that a quorum is met at every meeting. You track the order of the speakers during the meetings and listen to the proceedings so that you are well informed and can advise the president, and advises on PTA requirements that are outlined in the bylaws and state PTA toolkit and website. Motions are how the business of a meeting is presented. A motion is a formal proposal by a member to take a stand or take action. The first words of a motion should be, I move to approve our book fair to be held. And so the first words are, I move, because you as a person are making this motion. So you move. If a motion is coming from the executive board to the association, it would start with the executive board concurring, I move. If a motion is coming from a committee, the verbiage is the committee recommends and I move. I move is the key start to any motion. The president then restates the motion exactly as it was moved. There is discussion and a vote. And after the vote, the motion is either adopted or has failed and needs to be listed in the minutes. This is basically the 8 steps you need to be recognized by the chair to make a motion. It needs to be seconded. The president restates the motion. Debate or discussion is held. Then the motion is repeated, putting the question to the vote, and the president announces the results. Nominating committee elections are outlined in your bylaws. They're elected by the association at least 2 months before your annual election meeting. The elections for the nominating committee are conducted by the president. The makeup of the nominating committee is in Article 5 in your bylaws. How many members, how many alternates, and the responsibilities of the nominating committee. The committee elects their own chair. All committee discussions are confidential, and the committee must decide on the best slate independently without being swayed by personal feelings, and they need to be put aside for the betterment of the association. Your board officer elections are also outlined in your bylaws. They're held at the annual association meeting conducted by the president. The slate needs to be posted from the nominating committee at least 28 days before the meeting. This is specified in your bylaws. The requirements for the elected board positions are in your bylaws, as well as the rules for accepting candidates from the floor during the election, as well as rules for ballot votes and teller committees that oversee any ballot votes. Okay, we made it. Questions? Let me stop sharing so I can see you guys. It's going to take time to digest. And as questions come up and you're thinking about what was discussed and what your interpretation is, don't hesitate to reach out. That's what we're here for.
So I guess we're at the end of our time. It's almost 8 o'clock. So is it okay to say thanks for joining us this evening? I think there's like 1 or 2 of you
Absolutely.
that asked if you could stay on a little bit and ask a question. So we'll stay on a bit. But thanks again for joining us.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you giving up your evening and all that you do for your kids and families. Thank you.